The letter sat on my kitchen counter, like a bomb waiting to detonate. I recognized Camilla's perfect cursive immediately, the same handwriting that had signed countless family birthday cards over the years. But this was no celebration. My name is Esther, and this was supposed to be my 35th birthday. Instead, it became the day my world imploded. "You might want to sit down for this," Hannah said, gripping my shoulder. She'd arrived just as I was about to open the envelope. "It's probably just another passive-aggressive note about the family dinner I missed," I said, forcing a laugh, but my hands trembled as I tore it open. "Dear Esther, by now Brian has already left. Did you really think he'd stay with someone like you? Someone who can't even maintain basic family relationships? I just thought you should know. He's been staying with us for weeks. Roy and I have helped him see the truth about you. Don't bother trying to win him back. Some people just don't deserve happiness. Love always, Camilla." "That manipulative bitch," Hannah whispered, reading over my shoulder. "Esther, breathe." I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. The room spun as I grabbed my phone, dialing Brian's number. Straight to voicemail. I ran upstairs to our bedroom. His closet was empty, drawers cleaned out. How had I not noticed? "He's been working late for weeks," I said, slumping onto my bed. "All those nights at Roy and Camilla's. They were planning this." Hannah sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Your own brother helped them do this to you. Roy's been under Camilla's spell since the day they met," I said. "She's always hated me. Said I had everything she wanted, the stable career, the happy marriage, Grandma Isabel's approval." My voice cracked on the last part. Grandma had seen through Camilla from day one. "That girl's got poison in her heart," she'd warned Roy. But he wouldn't listen. Now she was gone, and Camilla had finally won. My phone buzzed. A text from Roy. "It's for the best, S. You brought this on yourself." I hurled the phone across the room, watching it crack against the wall. Hannah jumped. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I can't believe they did this. On my birthday." "They wanted to hurt you as much as possible," Hannah said, "but we're not going to let them win." I picked up Camilla's letter again, my tears falling onto her perfect handwriting. "Some people just don't deserve happiness," I read aloud, my fingers clenched, crumpling the paper. "She's wrong," Hannah said firmly, "and we're going to prove it." I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. Camilla thought she'd destroyed me, but she'd just lit a fire instead. 3 days after my world shattered, I found myself digging through Grandma Isabel's old jewelry box. Hannah had suggested keeping busy, but instead of cleaning or working, I was hunting for something, anything, to feel close to the one person who'd always protected me. "What's this?" I pulled out a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, my name written in Grandma's familiar scrawl. My hands shook as I opened it, a small key falling into my lap. "Dearest Esther, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And knowing our family, you're probably hurting. There's something I've kept from everyone, even Roy. A property called The Haven just outside the city. The deed is in the false bottom of this box. I bought it years ago as insurance against the storms I saw coming. You were always the strong one, my girl. The one who saw truth even when it hurt. Use this place wisely. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's rising above. All my love, Grandma Isabel." "Hannah," I called out. She'd been staying with me since that night, sleeping on my couch despite my protests. "You need to see this." She rushed in, coffee mug in hand. "What is it?" I pried open the false bottom she'd mentioned, finding the deed and several photographs. The property looked wild, overgrown, but I could see the bones of something beautiful. "She left me a house," I whispered. "All this time, she had this secret place." "Let's go see it," Hannah said immediately. "Right now." "It's probably falling apart." "Perfect," she interrupted. "You need a project, something to focus on besides." She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. Besides my husband's betrayal, besides my brother's abandonment, besides Camilla's victory. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. Let's go. The drive took 40 minutes. When we pulled up to the rustic gates, something shifted in my chest. The property was huge, at least 5 acres, with an old Victorian house standing proud, despite its weathered exterior. Holy shit, Hannah breathed. Your grandmother was sitting on this the whole time. I used the key from the envelope to unlock the gate. As we walked up the overgrown path, memories flooded back. Grandma's knowing smiles, her cryptic comments about having an ace up her sleeve. She knew, I realized. She knew someday I'd need an escape, a fresh start. Hannah squeezed my arm. Esther, this isn't just an escape. This is an opportunity. Standing there, looking up at the haven, I felt something I hadn't since reading Camilla's letter. Hope. And underneath it, something else. The first spark of a plan. You're right, I said, and I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. The haven's front door creaked open, releasing decades of dust into the air. Hannah sneezed while I fumbled for light switches, finding none. No power, I said, using my phone's flashlight to illuminate the space. Despite the cobwebs and decay, the interior took my breath away. High ceilings, intricate woodwork, and a grand staircase that curved up to the second floor. Look at these built-ins. Hannah ran her hand along a wall of bookshelves. This place must have been gorgeous in its day. I walked to the windows, pulling back heavy curtains. Sunlight flooded in, revealing more details. A marble fireplace, vintage wallpaper, and... There's something behind this panel, I called out, noticing an irregular seam in the woodwork. Hannah helped me push, and the panel swung open with a groan. Your grandmother had a secret room. Hannah's voice echoed in the hidden space. It was small, maybe 6 by 8 feet, with shelves lining the walls. But it was what sat on the center shelf that made me gasp. A leather-bound journal, more photographs and newspaper clippings, all about the haven's history. It was a women's boarding house, I read aloud from the journal. In the 1920s, it provided shelter for women escaping difficult situations. Grandma wrote that she discovered this while researching the property. Hannah picked up one of the photos. Look at these women. They look so determined. They were starting over, I said softly, just like me. A noise from outside made us both jump. Through the window, I spotted an older woman standing at our gate. Should we? Hannah gestured toward the door. We made our way outside, where the woman introduced herself as Margaret, a neighbor. I knew Isabel, she said, smiling warmly. She used to visit this place often, though she never lived here. Said she was keeping it ready. Ready for what? I asked. Margaret's eyes twinkled. For whoever needed it most, I suppose. This place has quite a history of helping people find their strength. As she shared stories about the haven's past, an idea began taking shape in my mind. The women who'd found refuge here, Grandma's secret preparation, even the hidden room, it all pointed to one purpose. I know what I want to do, I announced. This place shouldn't just be my fresh start. It should be that for others, too. Hannah's eyes widened as she caught on. A modern sanctuary? More than that, I said, my voice growing stronger. A place where people can rebuild their lives, where they can find their power again. Margaret nodded approvingly. Isabel would have loved that. Looking up at the haven, I felt Grandma's presence stronger than ever. She hadn't just left me an escape. She'd given me a mission. The wiring needs a complete overhaul, Angela, our newly hired contractor, announced. She'd been inspecting the haven for the past hour, while Hannah and I cleared decades of dust from the main floor. But the bones are solid. This place was built to last. Just like the women it helped, I said, showing her Grandma's journal. We want to honor that legacy. Angela's eyes lit up as she read. My company would love to be part of this. I know some other women-owned businesses that might want to get involved too. Really? I hadn't expected such immediate support. Absolutely. Isaiah, my business partner, has connections with local charities. He could help set up the legal framework for a non-profit. Hannah appeared in the doorway, waving her phone. Speaking of connections, I just got off the phone with that real estate attorney. The property's zoning actually allows for mixed use, residential and educational spaces. I sat down on a dusty windowsill, overwhelmed by how quickly things were moving. Just 2 weeks ago, I'd been reading Camilla's cruel letter. Now, Esther, Margaret's voice called from outside. She'd become a regular visitor, bringing lunch and local gossip. Today she carried a large box. "I found these in my attic," she said, setting it down. "Photos from when this place was active in the 20s. And something else you should see." She pulled out a newspaper clipping from 1925. The headline read, "Haven House celebrates success stories. Local women find new purpose. History's repeating itself," Margaret said softly. "In the best way possible." Angela joined us, studying the photos. "We could restore the original features, but modernize the facilities. Create both private spaces and community areas. Add a computer lab," Hannah suggested. "Career counseling offices, maybe even a daycare." I nodded, my vision becoming clearer with each suggestion. A place where people can heal and grow stronger. Where they can, well. A familiar voice cut through our planning. My stomach dropped as Camilla stepped through the front door, her designer heels clicking on the wooden floor. "So this is where you've been hiding." "How did you find out about this place?" I demanded, standing. "Small town, big gossip," she smirked. "Roy's quite interested to learn about Grandma's secret property. You know, as her only son's wife, I think I have some rights here." Hannah stepped forward, but I held up my hand. "You have no rights here, Camilla. The deed is in my name only." "We'll see about that," she said, pulling out her phone to take photos. "My lawyer will be in touch." As she sashayed out, Angela whistled low. "So that's the sister-in-law from hell?" "Yes," I said, watching Camilla's car disappear down the drive. "And she just made this personal." Another letter arrived 3 days after Camilla's visit, this time delivered by courier. Hannah watched as I tore it open, my hand steady despite my racing heart. "Dear Esther," I read aloud, "as the wife of Isabel's only son, I am formally requesting my rightful share of the Haven's ownership. Roy agrees that this property should benefit the entire family. We're prepared to offer you a generous buyout." "Generous?" Hannah snorted. "She just wants to flip it for profit." The renovation crew's power tools drowned out my response. The Haven was already transforming. New wiring, fresh paint, and restored woodwork bringing life back to every room. My phone buzzed. Isaiah, our legal advisor. "Esther, I've reviewed everything. The property transfer is ironclad. Isabel made sure of it." "Thank God," I breathed, "but Camilla's threatening legal action." "Let her try," Isaiah said. "I've dealt with cases like this before. She has no standing, but—" He paused. "She might make things difficult. Go public with family drama." "Perfect," I said, surprising both Isaiah and Hannah. "That's exactly what I want." After hanging up, I explained my plan to Hannah. Her eyes widened. "That's brilliant," she said, "but risky. Are you sure?" Before I could answer, Angela burst in. "We found something in the walls. You need to see this." We followed her to the second floor, where workers had opened a section of plaster. Inside was a metal box containing letters. Dozens of them. "They're from the women who stayed here," Angela said, handling one carefully. "Listen to this. Dear Haven House, you gave me the strength to stand on my own. Now I have a good job, a safe home, and my dignity back." Tears pricked my eyes as we read more letters. Stories of escape, renewal, and triumph over those who'd tried to break them. "This is it," I said. "This is how we handle Camilla." I pulled out my laptop and started typing. "Dear local news editor, I'd like to share a story about a historic women's sanctuary being reborn." "You're going to beat her at her own game," Hannah realized. "Make it impossible for her to fight this without looking terrible." "Exactly. Camilla wants to go public. Let's show everyone exactly who she is and what she's trying to destroy." My phone buzzed again, Roy this time. I let it go to voicemail. "He'll try to talk you out of it," Hannah warned. "He can try," I said, continuing to type. "But Grandma Isabel didn't create this place for it to become another rich person's investment property. The Haven has always been about transformation. Angela picked up another letter from the box. And revenge served cold. I smiled, thinking of Camilla's face when she realized what was coming. That's just a bonus. Local historic women's sanctuary to reopen. I read the newspaper headline aloud to our growing team. The article had run that morning, featuring photos of the Haven's restoration and interviews with Margaret about its history. Your phone's been blowing up, Hannah noted, glancing at my constantly vibrating cell. 14 missed calls from Roy, 23 from Camilla, I said, and dozens of emails from women wanting to help or seeking support. Angela burst through the door, waving her tablet. You need to see this. The story's gone viral. Local TV stations want interviews, and 3 corporate sponsors just reached out about funding. Perfect timing, Isaiah added, walking in behind her. I've finished drafting the non-profit paperwork. We can officially register the Haven Foundation today. The main hall was barely recognizable now. Fresh paint brightened the walls, and the refinished hardwood floors gleamed. New furniture arrived hourly, transforming empty rooms into welcoming spaces. Ms. Woods? A delivery woman appeared with a large arrangement of flowers. These just arrived. The card read, "Don't you dare ignore me. We're family." Camilla. Some family, Hannah muttered. Wait, Angela said, peering out the window. Speaking of family, a familiar black SUV pulled up the driveway. Camilla stepped out, followed by Roy. My brother looked uncomfortable, tugging at his collar. Ready? Hannah asked quietly. I nodded, squaring my shoulders. Places, everyone. Camilla burst through the door without knocking. What do you think you're doing? This publicity stunt. She stopped short, taking in the transformed space. 2 TV news crews were setting up their equipment, having arrived through the back entrance as planned. Local reporters mingled with our team members, all of them turning to stare at her entrance. Esther, Roy started, we need to talk about this privately. Nothing about the Haven will be private, I said clearly, aware of the cameras. That's the whole point. This place has always been about bringing things into the light. You can't just, Camilla began, but I cut her off. Actually, I can. And I am. The Haven is becoming exactly what Grandma Isabel intended, a place of transformation and healing. Everyone's welcome to support our mission. I smiled directly at the cameras. Even family members who might have lost their way. Camilla's face reddened as she realized the trap. Attack me now, on camera, and she'd destroy her carefully cultivated image. Stay silent, and she'd admit defeat. Roy, she hissed, do something. But my brother was staring at the historic photos we'd hung on the walls, particularly one showing our grandmother standing proud before the Haven in its original glory. No, he said quietly. I don't think I will. The cameras caught everything. Camilla's fury, Roy's revelation, and my quiet smile of victory. The Haven's grand opening drew hundreds of people. News vans lined the driveway, and a crowd filled the restored gardens. I stood at the podium, my grandmother's journal in my hands. Welcome to the Haven, I began, my voice carrying across the hushed audience. 98 years ago, this house opened its doors to women seeking refuge and renewal. Today, we honor that legacy. In the front row, Hannah beamed, while Angela and Isaiah nodded encouragingly. Margaret dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Many of you have asked why I chose to restore this place, I continued. The truth is, I didn't choose the Haven. It chose me. Through my grandmother's foresight, it found me when I needed it most. Movement at the back of the crowd caught my eye. Roy slipped in, alone, looking uncertain. Recently, someone told me I didn't deserve happiness, I said, my voice steady. They tried to take everything from me. My marriage, my family, my sense of worth. But they didn't know about this place, about its power to transform pain into purpose. I opened the journal, pulling out one of the letters we'd found in the walls. Listened to Sarah's words from 1925. The Haven taught me that starting over isn't failure, it's courage. That losing everything, can lead to finding yourself. Cameras flashed as I revealed our plans: counseling services, job training, temporary housing, and educational programs. Each announcement drew applause. "And now," I said, "I'd like to share something personal." I pulled out Camilla's birthday letter. "This is what brought me here, a letter meant to destroy me." The crowd murmured as I read it aloud. In the back, Roy's face drained of color. "But here's what the author of this letter didn't understand," I continued. "Sometimes our worst moments lead us to our greatest purpose. The Haven isn't just my sanctuary. It belongs to everyone who needs to rebuild, recover, and rise again." As if on cue, the doors opened. 3 women stepped forward, our first residents. Each had their own story of survival, their own journey to this moment. "Today, we're not just opening a building," I said. "We're continuing a legacy of transformation. My grandmother knew that the greatest revenge against cruelty is to create something beautiful from it." The applause was thunderous. As people began touring the house, Roy approached the podium. "Esther," he said, his voice rough, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea Camilla would show her true colors," I finished. "Maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. She's moving out," he said quietly. "Filed for divorce this morning." I nodded, watching the crowd explore the Haven, my Haven, now transformed into something greater than revenge. "Good," I said simply. "Sometimes losing everything is exactly what we need." "Another donation?" Hannah asked, watching me open the mail in the Haven's newly furnished office. "Better," I smiled, holding up a familiar-looking envelope. "It's from Brian." She sat down quickly. "Your ex? What does he want?" I scanned the letter, then laughed. "To apologize. Apparently, Camilla's divorce proceedings revealed some interesting things, including how she manipulated him into leaving me." "Are you okay?" Hannah reached for my hand. "Actually, yes." I placed the letter in my desk drawer. "It doesn't hurt anymore. That's not even my life now." A knock at the door interrupted us. Angela poked her head in. "Your brother's here, with the papers." Roy entered, carrying a thick folder. "It's done," he said. "Camilla signed away any claim to family properties, including the Haven, part of the divorce settlement." "How generous of her," Hannah muttered. "She didn't have a choice," Roy said. "Not after the evidence came out about her activities." The judge wasn't impressed. Through the window, I could see our residents in the garden, tending to the vegetables they'd planted. Margaret was teaching them about heirloom tomatoes, gesturing enthusiastically. "I found this," Roy pulled something from the folder, "in Camilla's things. It's from Grandma Isabel." The envelope was addressed to Camilla, dated just before our grandmother's death. "Dear Camilla," I read aloud, "I see your heart's darkness, your need to possess what others have. Remember this: true wealth isn't in what you take, but in what you build. I've left the Haven to Esther, not because I love her more, but because she'll use it to lift others up, while you would only tear them down." "She knew," Roy said softly. "She knew everything." "Of course she did," I replied, thinking of the hidden room, the careful planning. "She was protecting all of us, in her own way." Isaiah appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but the new family's arriving." We watched from the window as a woman and her 2 children walked up the path, carrying small suitcases. Like all our residents, they were starting over. "They'll be okay," Hannah said, "just like you were." "Better than okay," I corrected, picking up my grandmother's journal. "They'll be transformed." The woman looked up at the Haven's restored facade, and I recognized the expression on her face. The same one I'd had months ago. Hope, possibility, strength. "Welcome home," I whispered, though she couldn't hear me. Behind me, Roy cleared his throat. "Grandma would be proud." "Yes," I said, watching the family cross the threshold into their new beginning. "But not just of me, of what the Haven has become. A place where karma comes full circle and healing wins over hatred." The door closed behind them, and another chapter began.